Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Today is a national holiday. We observe the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And everything stops, everything slows down. And on this day, we theoretically, are supposed to reflect on the meaning of Dr. King's life. And so I hope you will do that. I certainly will. But I must say, there is so much going on in the world right now that we'd better get directly to what we need to talk about. I want to address a question about the arrogance of power. I have several examples that I want to give to you this morning, and I want you to consider them. First of all, the question of Greenland. Donald Trump has determined that he is going to seize Greenland, that it is going to become part of the United States, either with their cooperation or against their cooperation. Doesn't matter. He has made a decision. And let me point out to you that the European Union is absolutely opposed to what Donald Trump is doing. And he is going to Switzerland this week for the International Conference on Monetary Systems. And what is going to happen, well, is anybody's guess. The president has chosen to use a weapon. And I want to be very clear. That's what it is, a weapon. Tariffs. He is imposing tariffs on those European nations who do not agree with his attempt to take Greenland. It is astounding in every way. And as you are no doubt aware, there is a continuing sense by the Europeans that they are going to defy Donald Trump. Now, let's be clear. This is a crisis that doesn't need to happen. Greenland and Denmark have indicated that the United States of America has free reign. You want to put bases here? Fine. Not a problem. We have a treaty that says that. It is a manufactured crisis that has absolutely no bearing on reality. I want you all to understand. Greenland is of strategic importance to the United States. There is no doubt about it. But by treaties, we have everything we need. We already have a base there. We are told if we want to put more bases there, we can. Russia and China may represent a threat, but not if we have bases in Greenland, not if we are a part of the defense agreement that NATO enforces. And what is the president doing? He is putting the NATO alliance in jeopardy. And I want to be clear. The Europeans, whether it is the Prime Minister of Great Britain or the President of France, have all said that what you are doing, Mr. President, is jeopardizing the NATO alliance. Why? Because Denmark and Greenland are part of NATO. The president is talking about going to war against NATO allies. I must tell you, I believe it's lunacy. I believe it is lunacy of the nth degree. Thank heaven a bipartisan group of members of Congress traveling to Greenland have expressed that same view. And no doubt the president is going to hear this from many, but Donald Trump says, I am determined, and he seems to be more interested in seizing Greenland than he is in preserving the alliance which has guided our country since the end of the Cold War. NATO was constructed in 1947, 48, 49, 50, in the aftermath of World War II, in order to preserve us. The founding of NATO in 1950 created the greatest alliance of nations. And frankly, why disrupt it? There is an arrogance of power here. By the way, I don't know what's going to happen today at the Supreme Court. There is some discussion that there may be a verdict rendered on the question of tariffs. Personally, I hope the court stands up and says to the president, tariffs are not your province. Only Congress can approve tariffs. And that would certainly be a blow to Donald Trump in every sense and every way. But it's not the blow at Donald Trump that I'm concerned about. It is the application of American law. The Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930, which provided Congress the ability to impose tariffs, and then the decision by Congress to revoke Smoot-Hawley, proved Congress's role, not the president's. But this is a battle of arrogance. It makes no sense for American foreign policy, and they can restate and restate and restate that this has to do with America's defense. The treaty binds us, the Kingdom of Denmark and Greenland, into an alliance which is all that is needed. That's what agreements and treaties are for. What the president is doing is outrageous. It is the ultimate demonstration of the arrogance of power, and he must be restrained. I want to say a word about Stars and Stripes. For years, I've read Stars and Stripes because, frankly, it's always been a reliable source of information. Now we are told they want to shake up Stars and Stripes, and it's going to be controlled completely, well, by whoever Trump wants. It's another appalling move, the arrogance of power by this president. And those of you who were in the military who read Stars and Stripes, and those of us who have simply read Stars and Stripes for informational purposes, understand this is a continuation of Donald Trump's damage to information, whether it is his anger at CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN, even at Fox on occasion, his decision to gut the Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, his attack on National Public Radio and the National Public Corporation of America for broadcasting, all of these things, just incredible. But that's not all. The President of the United States, in addition to going after his political enemies with indictments, and we've seen those very clearly, is now going after the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis. That's right. Governor Walsh and Mayor Frey are now being told that they are subject to criminal investigation. My friends, what does it take to understand that what the president has done is to weaponize the Justice Department? That's right. A complete violation of the trust which we have in our president. And now the president, in response to what is happening in Minnesota, is talking about federal troops standing by, troops in Alaska, who may be sent to Minnesota if he invokes the appropriate measures, including the Insurrection Act. And what about the National Guard, which has been called out in Minnesota? If the governor of Minnesota calls out the National Guard, what happens if the National Guard and federal troops are both on the ground? What happens if they have conflicting agendas? Do you understand what this president has done is unconscionable? Now, I know that tomorrow will mark the first anniversary of his inauguration for a second term. And I'm going to say something now that I have thought about seriously all weekend. If ever a president should face impeachment by the House and conviction by the Senate, it is Donald Trump. And it should not be a matter of who controls the House or who controls the Senate. What Donald Trump has been doing these last period of weeks, but if you want, for a year, has been so egregious, so outrageous, than any other president in American history. I ask you to consider a president who has now put us at war, essentially, with our allies in Europe. A man who has abused power by invoking tariffs. A man who has gone after our information in America, whether it is through control of radio or television. I want you to consider this president who is going after the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis, who is now talking about putting federal troops into Minnesota, invoking the Insurrection Act. This is outrageous. It is egregious. Now, some of you are going to say, John, you're overreacting. I'm sorry. I have always been a constitutionalist. That is to say, I believe that the United States of America maintains its balance because of our documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, and yes, part of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. When a president violates his oath routinely because of an arrogance of power, there must be a response, a vigorous response. And it is not just the people of the United States. It is our allies. It is Europe that is now responding. I am teaching a course at the moment on Edward R. Murrow and the history of the founding of the alliance, which was brought about because we fought a war against the Nazis, against Germany, and we won. And there was a threat from the Soviet Union, and the people of Western Europe and their governments demanded that there be an alliance created that would ensure the independence and the freedom of Europe. You know the most interesting thing I thought about last night, in a way? Everyone's focused on Greenland. Is anybody talking about what's going on in Ukraine? Has anybody considered the implications of ignoring a major war on the European continent in which Russia is now attacking the energy sources in Ukraine, even as winter descends? Do we understand the implications in the United States of America when a president of the United States can initiate criminal charges against the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis? Do you know what it means when the president of the United States decides, as he apparently is thinking seriously of doing, to invoke the Insurrection Act, to put federal troops on standby to go to Minnesota? Do we understand the implications of all of the things that Donald Trump is doing? Talk about arrogance of power. Talk about destabilization. Talk about an assault on democracy. Now, I know I am just one voice, and I am just a person who has a podcast. But I am someone who is grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak out loudly and clearly, and I hope effectively. I could have enumerated many other abuses of power, many other situations in this last year in which I believe Donald Trump has abused his authority. Today, I am waiting, as you are, for the United States Supreme Court to issue a verdict on tariffs. What will the president's reaction be if he is told by the court he cannot unilaterally impose tariffs? Do you understand the implications? The balance of power? Yeah, that's right. Executive, legislative, and judicial. Will the Supreme Court have the courage to act? And what about Congress? Where are the members of Congress who are allowing this president to violate every norm of American democracy? Yes, my friends, there is an arrogance of power, and maybe his own hubris will bring him down. But I can say this without any question. If this were a Democrat pulling what Donald Trump is pulling, I would be just as outraged. And I hope you would be too. This is a moment not for partisanship, but for bipartisanship. There needs to be a reining in. There needs to be a serious consideration of articles of impeachment in the House, a trial in the Senate that is not a mock trial, but a trial which preserves the American constitutional system. I believe that with every fiber of my being. And if what I have said today offends you, may I say, I'm not at all sorry. Not a bit. I think I speak for America. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and click any of the links to the show notes to connect with me on social media. Remember, please, to share this episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. I hope you will consider what I am saying carefully. You know, I began by talking about the Stars and Stripes, a publication. What we're really doing is defending the Stars and Stripes, aren't we? I want to say a big thank you to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this program. I'll be back tomorrow, and I hope the news is better, but certainly the weight of what is happening is going to grow. You know that this show has been getting so much positive attention that we're excited to bring in advertising support. I am really thrilled to have advertisers, and I want you to know we intend to go forward and build and talk and be involved, no matter what anybody says. Let me know what you think. I am John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you tomorrow, which, by the way, is the first anniversary of Donald Trump's second term.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.